When things are getting difficult, which I go in that very often, businesses will often get unbearable, where you just don't want to deal with more headaches and problems and setbacks and lists of things to do. Take a break, walk away, breathe, go to sleep, go do whatever it is that you enjoy doing and get back to it, but come back and have persistence. Because perhaps this might help. If you understand from day one that owning a business is not just for the purpose of making money, you will develop your tolerance level to pain. If you understand that entrepreneurship is not about winning, it's about experimenting, it's about learning, it's about failing, it's about fighting, innovating, providing a service, bringing something new to society. And that is not easy. If you recognize the meaning of entrepreneurship from the beginning, you will be better mentally and emotionally prepared.
Okay, welcome fellow entrepreneurs and goal getters to Entrepreneurial Elevation, Unleashing Greatness Within, with myself, your host, Kelly Beveridge, and my guest today, Jose Berlanga. And I'm really excited to have him on here and learn from him. I'm just going to share a little bit about him. So Jose has achieved multi-millionaire status 4 distinct times in 4 separate industries. I'm going to share what they are just so you can see his vast experience. So in import and export company for machinery in the petrochemical industry, in investments such as a chain of Italian coffee bars, which is pretty cool, a residential construction company, and lastly, land development. And he's built all of these from the ground up. He has over 40 plus years experience as an entrepreneur and in business of going through all the aspects of entrepreneurship, building, growing, scaling, failing, overcoming adversity. And we're going to talk about all of it today. Today, we're going to talk about the reality of entrepreneurship and just really what it takes. And so just really excited to have Jose here today. Jose, thanks so much for being on the episode today.
Hi, Kelly. How are you? It's great to be here.
I'm doing awesome. And yeah, I'm excited to learn from you and pick your brain. I always love connecting with people who have the experience like you do that can hopefully save myself some time as I build business and take some nuggets and learning lessons from you. And so I know we're going to talk a little bit about your story and probably weave it into our conversation, yet I want to dive in and I want to ask, many people love this idea of the lifestyle of being an entrepreneur. It has this romanticized ideal of being an entrepreneur. And so I'm curious because I think people don't quite realize the sacrifice and what it takes to build a business and be an entrepreneur. What do you feel are a couple realities that entrepreneurs don't quite grasp until they're in it?
You're right. I think that entrepreneurship is misunderstood in many ways. We get to see the end result in most cases of what the successful entrepreneurs have accomplished and have achieved. We don't get to normally see the early stages. I don't think that entrepreneurship is for everyone. You really have to go through a very tough journey, particularly if you choose one of those very common types of businesses. Not all of us are geniuses. Not all of us invent things or come up with incredible ideas. And even those are difficult because you have to train the world and educate the world to better understand your inventions. But it's a very difficult life choice I always say that you have to have a very particular personality that can tolerate the punching, the ups and downs, the uncertainty, the pressure, the stress. Its success does not come for free. That is for sure. And sometimes, as that saying goes, be careful what you wish for, because when you take on this journey of starting your business or building your business from the ground up, it will come at a high price. And yes, I would never discourage anyone from trying it if that is what you want to do with your life. But what I do recommend is for people to be ready emotionally, to be ready, even physically. You're going to get into this very, very difficult activity that is going to require everything out of you. And the biggest misconception is that going on your own and becoming what we feel is becoming our own boss. It's not quite like that at first. It's quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. You become really part of this business in every way, shape, or form. You don't own a business owns you, a business controls you, a business takes over your life, over your time, and over everything else, assuming that you want to do it right, assuming that you want to take this seriously. If you're starting a business to just make money and free up some time and to run your schedule and to manage your time in an easier manner, that's very unrealistic, particularly in the early stages. You have to give it all. And there are no such thing as schedules in balance. You and I were talking about balancing life and balancing the different aspects of life. When you start a business, I've been asked this question many times, how do you balance life? I can balance it now, years later, where I can make those choices. I can select how and where I spend my day. But in the early years of my career, it was all business. There was no balance. I had to choose whether I wanted to build a business, make something out of my life, or have a life. But I couldn't do both of them and do them. That's the choice. And the younger you start, the better.
Yeah, no, you know what? I love it. It's just like honest talk, right? And like what I was saying, people romanticize entrepreneurship, and eventually you will get to that space where you have lifestyle and the time freedom as you're sharing, yet you've got to be willing to go through what most people aren't willing to go through to be rewarded with that. And I guess that would be one of my questions. What you just described sounds like, geez, I don't know if I want to do that. So why would anybody in their right mind choose that to begin with?
You would choose the life of entrepreneurship for a number of reasons because it is very rewarding at the end of the day. You become the person that you want to become. Eventually, you control your life, and there is no limit of how high and how successful you can become. You get to really design your activities, design your future, pretty much choose the path that you want to live. But again, what I keep referring is that as the early stages are preparing for everything that is going to require in order for you to succeed. But at the end of the day, if you're able to put up with all of that hard work and the dedication and eliminate distractions and really take this seriously, it does have a lot of wonderful things to it at the end of the day, because societies require entrepreneurship, require the creativity. You create employment, you create a new concept, you can improve the way that any particular industry operates. You can be part of something bigger than yourself, and you can really design the way that your career is going to go in the long term. So it's worth it. And let's not forget financially. Eventually, we all want financial freedom. That is something that is more easily attainable, not in the short term, but eventually through owning your business, if you're able to get to that stage.
Yeah, I'm loving everything you're sharing. And I'm just sitting here thinking it's like in the beginning, especially just being willing to hold faith in your vision and attach to the process and be willing to be in the process of getting to where you ultimately want to go. And you've been a millionaire 4 times over, Jose. And, we're talking about being willing to sacrifice and get to the ideal, right? So you've reached millionaire status. Usually when people get into entrepreneurship, I would say that's the significant goal that people strive to originally. And so can you speak to the significance of facing adversity and continuing to move through setbacks? Because you grew and then went back and had setbacks. You grew again and went back and had setbacks. And here you are a few times over, back up to the millionaire status, having very successful businesses in the later chapter of your entrepreneurship journey. What key aspects does it take to emotionally and mentally be willing to pick yourself up and keep going when it doesn't look how you thought it was going to turn out.
Wow. Dealing with adversity and the setbacks of this career is very challenging. It's taxing emotionally. And when you close your eyes and focus on your activity, sometimes I give the analogy of this career as jumping off a boat in the middle of the ocean. And once you're in the water, you have no other choice but to keep swimming until you get somewhere. And if
Mhm.
you take that frame of mind where you just have to keep going and there is no option but to make something out of your business, something out of your career, you come up with things. And you come up with a way of solving things every day that you would surprise yourself. What human creativity and what our brain is able to do through these ups and downs is amazing. But of course, human beings, it's easier not to put the effort. It's easier not to try. It's easier not to stay up at night solving problems, even designing solutions for problems that haven't even shown up just to prepare. You start developing this ability to deal with issues and to solve them and to be quick on your feet as to how you react to everything that's happening in your business. Because you start realizing that you don't have a choice of walking away from everything that you have to face every day. When you work for a company, you can always pass on responsibilities and come up with an excuse or a reason why something didn't work. And perhaps someone else will take over the responsibility. But when you're the person on top, as they say, it's lonely. At the end of the day, it's all up to you. The ups and downs, it's funny, you mentioned the successful experiences that I've had in my career, but what I don't talk about that often is all the other dozen experiences when things went wrong and the
Mm.
many small steps that I took throughout all those companies that also didn't go right. In entrepreneurship, there are normally more things that go wrong than the ones that go right. But if you just get some important steps in the process and you get them right, you will make it. But having gone through some of these industries that, for whatever reason, didn't go my way, it was a very difficult process. Starting all over. Imagine if they say that making your first million is it's next to impossible. So doing it multiple times and in
Mhm.
multiple industries, I'm not sure even how I did it sometimes. It was just basically closing my eyes and waking up and doing what I needed to do one day at a time. And eventually things start working. But yeah, and the reason why I always get asked, why did I switch industries? Why did I go from being that now that you've learned something in any given sector of the market, why would you move on to something completely different? And the reason mainly was because a new opportunity came about in a completely different industry. The one or that I originally was became somewhat obsolete. If the markets change, there was really not that much room to grow. And I had to start all over and look for something new, which is something that I always recommend people. Once you realize that whatever it is you're doing, if it gets to a point where it's not getting anywhere, don't be afraid to move on and start again. It's scary at first. It's financially difficult because you need to figure out how to support yourself and your family, and all those things become quite challenging. But if something is not working, you also have to figure out when it's time to move on and start again from scratch, just like everything else in life. But yeah, I've been in a lot of businesses. I've had that itch, that nature of curiosity and desire to start things and build things. And some personalities are just like that. They're very busy all the time in their brain and they have more ideas than what they have time to execute. And that's just been my nature of a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I like it. I like what you're sharing, that it's, as an entrepreneur, you develop the skill of being an entrepreneur. So it's not necessarily industry related. You could go somewhere and learn that industry, Yet through everything you've done, you've developed this skill set of entrepreneurship that you can apply to all things. I think that's a really amazing belief to adapt because it means that there's always going to be an opportunity for you.
Yes, absolutely. I did not, in the early stages of my career, I did not understand the full meaning of entrepreneurship. This is a relatively new trend, I have to admit. When I was younger, you were a businessman, you had a profession, you had a specialty, you knew what you wanted to do, you knew the industry that you wanted to participate in. The very general, generic entrepreneur persona or identity wasn't quite that clear back then. What I mean by it is even myself, I was a little bit concerned about my lack of clarity as to what industry or what product I wanted to participate in or what type of business I wanted to start and build. And that gave me a lot of anxiety because I didn't know where to look or how to start something. And eventually, I'm going to skip that part. But the important part about entrepreneurship is you're very right. You don't have to be an expert on anything, on any product, on any service. You just have to understand the definition of entrepreneurship, which is knowing how to put the pieces together to start a business. And it applies to any industry, any product, any service. Once you understand the language of talent, building a team, understanding numbers, understanding a financial statement, understanding a balance sheet, asset and liability, cash flow, all of the ingredients that make or break a business. Once you understand a little bit about the sector that you're about to get involved in, the standards, the numbers, the ratios, the percentages, what should be your cost of goods sold, what should be your margin of profitability, because it changes from one industry to another. But once you know that you have the ability to understand the type of talent that you require for any particular business, whether it's clothing, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's distribution, whether it's the car industry, the construction, anything, whether you're building furniture, if once you do some research and once you understand what that industry is about, if you have the personality, if you have the skill to know what are the things that you need to put together in order for this business to succeed. For example, some entrepreneurs buy businesses, existing businesses, because they know how to put the financing together. They know how to grab the different pieces, find the business, find the team, find the equity capital, the risk capital, the participants that are willing to join you in this business, then find the financing for the rest. And once you know the process, it becomes very interesting how you can start getting involved in a lot of businesses, and you don't have to necessarily be focused on one type of industry. I call that the ones that are a little more specific are more professional that decide to go on their own, like a doctor or a dentist or an architect or an attorney that decided to start their own firm. But these are more specific type of entrepreneurs that had a career already in what they were doing. But there are the generic ones like myself that I never really had a specialty. I just like building things, and I couldn't really care much about what type of industry I was in. So that's what I recommend. Some people who love the business world, you don't have to worry about so much about these details of what type of business you're going to be involved in.
Yeah. And I know that you're speaking so eloquently, and I know it's from experience because you've been in the trenches. And I know you're also very hands on in each of the businesses that you've been involved with. Can you speak a little bit, Jose, to this idea of, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and they're all amazing and brilliant. They've got great ideas. Yet what I see happen a lot of the times is entrepreneurs there's this resistance to get into the trenches and to be in action doing. Whereas where you actually develop the skill, you develop your personality and the strengths of your personality, you develop the skill set and the strengths of your skill set by being involved and being in action and walking towards the unknown versus sitting in the planning stages, the strategizing stages, I've got this idea of a business and I'm an entrepreneur, but you're not really acting on it. And so can you speak to that? Because I feel like that's a huge distinction where most entrepreneurs are creating what they can sooner because they're just not willing to be in that kind of activity.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's such a thing as too much hands-on or too much lack of participation. All of us make that mistake as entrepreneurs. I've made both mistakes where I invested money in a business and I didn't spend too much time on it and the business didn't work out because maybe I didn't pay a little bit of attention on the different aspects that I could have perhaps made a difference. And vice versa. I've owned businesses where I became a control freak, perhaps because it took me so much work and energy and sacrifice to get it off the ground that I became paranoid about passing on responsibilities. And that is also a mistake. You have to find that medium ground, but also you have to understand the business model. So let's start with that. When you choose a model, a type of a business, you have to truly understand if you're selecting a practice, what I call a practice which involves you. You have to be there. You can have a business, you can turn it into a business, but if you run a company that depends on you being there, like the surgeon, that without you there is no operation, you have to be present. There are many businesses that surround themselves around ownership. And if you design it that way, that's fine, but just know it in advance that if you want to have that type of business, you're going to have to be there. If you want to be more of a hands-off type of that entrepreneur that doesn't have to be there every day, then you have to focus on your team and on systems, repetition, structure, because turning everything into more of a cookie cutter type of activity where you can direct and guide and somewhat focus on your vision, but you don't have to be part of the day-to-day. And you have to plan that ahead of time. I've made the mistake of not thinking enough in advance and understanding the type of business that I am creating, where before you know it, I own a business that if I'm not there for a day or two, things fall apart. And you start getting frustrated because you start becoming so necessary to the organization because you weren't able to gradually pass on some responsibilities to others. And the way you do it is, of course, gradual, not too early. I recommend that before you hand off areas of your business, you should understand them. You don't have to be the expert in every area. You don't have to be an accountant or an attorney, or be the purchasing guy or be a highly technical person, but you have to understand what is required from each one of the job descriptions so that you can direct them and guide them properly. And as you pass them on, be very careful in being extremely specific as to what job you're handing off to someone else. One of the mistakes we make is that we become a little bit vague in hiring people and giving out tasks. And before there are gray areas in your business that nobody's handling or taking care of, and businesses tend to be affected by that. So it has to be, the way I describe it is when you are a small business and you begin to grow, or you begin to have not enough time to handle certain activities, you start passing on first the one that annoys you the most, the one that consumes most of your time, the one that you don't feel like you're very good at, that there could be someone that could do a better job than you. That's a question I get. How do you determine when you need to hire your first employee? I think that's one of the first steps. What is something that is taking a lot of time, a lot of my attention, that I don't necessarily enjoy doing, that I'm not necessarily very good at, but that needs to be done? regularly. Hey, I don't like bookkeeping. For example, in my construction company, that was one of the first few employees that we hired, a bookkeeper. We didn't want to be doing the administrative. Secondly, we hired a project manager because we couldn't be at the job sites every day. For every industry, it's a little bit different, but you can always identify. And this activity needs to be specific. Another mistake we make is that as new entrepreneurs, we hire someone to just follow us around and learn what we're doing. And that's a big mistake because you don't want another you. You want someone to just learn random things about your business. You want someone to take over one specific area that's very clear, that's very repetitive, that they don't have to make too many decisions and then move on to the next one and one at a time. But yeah, the point of the question is sometimes entrepreneurs either fear delegating because it is scary. You don't want to lose your business. You don't want to make mistakes in giving responsibilities to the wrong people, or they give away too much work to everyone without enough supervision. So I think it's a gradual process. And also a very important point, we need to understand as entrepreneurs, as business owners, that being good at one area or one thing is not enough to be successful in business. For example, if you own a repair shop, let's say an auto repair shop, and you think that you can own a business because you're a very good mechanic. So you go and start your business. This is very common. Before you know it, your business is in trouble because you don't know about numbers, because you don't know about expenses, because you don't know about advertising, because you don't know about social media, because you don't know about hiring and training and so on and so forth. Or vice versa. You think that you are someone that can own a business because you know how to do the administrative side, but you don't understand anything about cars. So you have to know that it's not enough to really just understand one area of the business in order to be successful. And if you do, find someone trusted, a partner, someone that is very qualified in the area that you don't excel at. But just know that those other areas cannot be ignored. I've seen many businesses fail because the owner, the principal, the founder was either too creative or too technical or too number person and did not cover the other areas properly. And that wasn't enough to stay in business.
Yeah, no, this is such great advice. And I'm sitting here thinking as you're speaking, because you have so much experience, what advice would you give someone based on your years of experience? If you were to share, let's say 2 or 3 non-negotiables of lessons that you've learned that you, no matter what industry, no matter what your focus is, you apply it to your current business. Like, what would be 2 or 3 things that you would say are must-haves or must-dos or must-not-dos, like just some non-negotiables?
Unfortunately, in entrepreneurship, there are many. One is to have the interest in whatever it is you're doing. You cannot get into a business just because it's a quick money scheme. You want to make money and move on. You're just thinking that this is going to be an easy way for you to free up time and make money. If that is the only reason you're doing it, I've made that mistake where I've gotten into businesses because I think that I'm going to make money and that's it. And it doesn't quite work that well. You have to have more than that. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a mission. You have to have a reason for being in this particular industry in order to make a difference. That's something that I think you need to consider. Don't jump into something just because you think it's going to be an easy way out of poverty or an easy way into success. Number 2, I think you need to be a well-rounded individual that understands people, that has good communicating skills, that gets along with others, that is flexible, that has the ability to adapt to different environments. There is something to be said about the type of personality that entrepreneurs need to have. That is something that is not often spoken about. What are some of the fundamental personality traits of an entrepreneur? And you have to have those. Your ability, again, to take the pressure, to deal with uncertainty, to know that you have to have faith in what you're doing, and you may not know when or where your next pay is coming from, but just know that you have to keep going, and that the pressure and the stress needs to be applied to getting things done, as opposed to just worrying and doing nothing about it. And perhaps the number one recommendation is that if you take on this challenge, it needs to turn into your number one priority. Period. If you're going to dabble, there is no such thing as, hey, let me have a business on the side. Let me start a business on the side. That's it. Even when you devote every waking moment to entrepreneurship, it's still difficult. If you attempt it part-time, I don't recommend it. I don't think that it's going to go anywhere if you don't give it your all in every sense of the word. Well, focus and do one thing. Sometimes we want to do multiple things and perhaps spread ourselves too thin by running different activities in our lives, and our business tends to suffer. So you have to give it your all. That's perhaps my number one requirement in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I love it. When you talk about the fundamentals of the personality, right, that needs to be cultivated when becoming an entrepreneur. And I agree with all those things you shared, because there is so much unknown and uncertainty and ups and downs as we're working towards our vision, and being able to handle that and be neutral with the results and have massive vision without the expectation attached, and like just all of these pieces of the puzzle. And I like to say play to win, and you're saying be all in. And I agree, right? Whenever we're all in something and we're not dabbling, that's when we're going to reap the rewards. And so everything you're sharing is awesome. I'm curious as you're talking, because I think, speaking of entrepreneurship, it isn't easy. And I know there's been times where I'm like, man, would it just be easier to throw in the towel? Like, why am I going through all of this? And of course, I won't, and I didn't. Yet, what advice would you give someone who's on the verge of giving up their entrepreneurial dream because they're facing challenges right now or tough times?
When things are getting difficult, which I go in that very often, businesses will often get unbearable, where you just don't want to deal with more headaches and problems and setbacks and lists of things to do. Take a break, walk away, breathe, go to sleep, go do whatever it is that you enjoy doing, and get back to it, but come back and have persistence. Because perhaps this might help. If you understand from day one that owning a business is not just for the purpose of making money, you will develop your tolerance level to pain. If you understand that entrepreneurship is not about winning, it's about experimenting, it's about learning, it's about failing, it's about fighting, innovating, providing a service, bringing something new to society. And that is not easy. If you recognize the meaning of entrepreneurship from the beginning, you will be better mentally and emotionally prepared. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs are the least emotional ones, and the ones that have a very clear mission and a purpose. And they're going to do this no matter what, no matter how things go. They're just going to continue because the mission is greater than the short-term goals. If you ignore the bad days and assume that every day is going to be challenging and you're going to have a number of setbacks, and that mostly every day things are not going to happen the way that you planned them, you might be able to better face this reality. But when you're unrealistic and you think that everything's going to be smooth and fun and exciting and creative, and you're going to be passionate about every aspect of your activity, you're going to fail, because business is not, passion is also not enough. I think sacrifice and perseverance and discipline and tolerance in the
Mm,
business world are more important than passion, because passion, I related more to pleasure, and building something is not always pleasurable. There's a lot of headaches that come together, that come with your process of becoming successful. If you understand that part of success is a sequence of small failures, I think you're better prepared. Now, most importantly, think of, here's the analogy. Let's say that you are training for the Olympic, for whatever type of sport, and you keep falling and hurting yourself over and over. And you get tired of getting hurt and walk away. Obviously, there is no gold medal. There is no medal at all. All of the times that you get hit and punched and you fall to the ground and get up are getting you closer. So to answer your question, walking away because it hurts or because it's uncertain or because it's difficult, you're wasting all of that experience that you're gaining while you are getting there. Think of every fall and every setback as getting you a little bit closer to where you want to get, because it's building your ability to get better at problem solving and at identifying a better way to reach that success. So you don't want to waste it. Just see it as the progress. See the setbacks, see the problems, see the headaches as new learning experiences. Is the cost of getting there. The cost of success requires a sequence of falls, let's call it. Imagine if you're getting very close and all of a sudden you quit, now you wasted all of those experiences.
yeah, for sure. And so I'm curious. And so I have a question before we start to wrap up. And as you're speaking, I agree, right? I love how you talked about endurance, having the willingness to play the long game, I like to say, and go through all of these lessons that you're speaking to and speaking of, because who you become through that process is amazing and magical and you almost rebirth yourself right into this different person with the journey of entrepreneurship. Yeah, my question is, looking back, Jose, how do you, as you go through everything you just described, how do you maintain a sense of joy or optimism or positivity so that you also are enjoying the journey while you're in it? And you're also bringing a version of somebody that people want to be around while you're in entrepreneurship, like your wife, your kids, your family, your friends. What advice would you have for people as they're going through it and facing all of that? Because you don't want that experience to cause you to be a person that isn't fun to be around. You know what I mean? So how do you bring a good version of yourself to the table while you're sometimes in the struggle?
Wow, that is a wonderful question, because that you run the risk of turning into someone that you don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
When life gets difficult at a personal level or in a business, you may turn into a unhappy and in a difficult person to be around. Very true. This can happen even in relationships. When you're with someone that just doesn't make you happy at all, eventually you're no longer yourself. And I think the first part of the response to this question is, if you're in a business that you dislike, maybe you need to consider moving on to a different business. There has to be something about the business that you enjoy. It cannot all be suffering and pain. There has to be some interesting. That's why I mentioned getting into a business that you find interesting. Believe it or not, I have walked away from businesses that were financially successful, but they made me miserable. Every moment, every day, I dread getting up in going to this office and dealing with the type of activities that I had to deal with, it became a point where it wasn't about the money. I didn't want to waste my life doing something that I hated and that it made me unhappy every hour of every day. So if it gets to that point, I do recommend start looking at something else because life is too short. I always associate entrepreneurship with a difficult journey, but pleasurable. It's a good type of pain, like climbing a mountain, like being where you're suffering through the mountain, but it's giving you some level of rush, of happiness and of joy and of success. So you got to have that balance. That I do agree that there is a balance between pain and pleasure when you own a business. If it's all pain and if it's all misery, then perhaps it's not for you. Either the lifestyle of an entrepreneurship is not for you or the type of business. No, I don't suggest just get used to being miserable. I suggest get used to the difficult days and the pain and the sacrifice. But it has to come with some joy. For example, I find pleasure in being able to give my family what I want to give them and take them on trips and give them a lifestyle that gives me joy. So I put up with certain pressures in my life because they bring me other aspects that are very joyful. But if it's all pain and you're getting to the point where even the fruits of your labor and the financial success that it's bringing you is not enough and you're just constantly miserable, then I think it's time to reconsider.
Yeah, I love that answer. Thank you. And I really do agree. And you have so much wisdom. And I know you've taken this and you've put it into a book. And we were chatting earlier and you said you're penning your second and third book already. And so you are an author. Your book is called The Business of Home Building. And Jose, maybe just chat a little bit. Where can we get your book? Why did you write a book? And is there anything else you just want to share about yourself right now where the listeners can find you?
Yes, thank you for mentioning my book. It was a very exciting process. I'm not a writer in the literary aspects of writing books. I'm a storyteller. I wanted to tell the story of how this business, where I invested so many years of my life, how it happened, why it started, and how I developed it and built it. The business of home building was focused on the industry, but it's more of an entrepreneurship type of book that can be applied to any industry. Anyone who wants to start and build a business can find very useful aspects of this book because it helps you organize your thoughts, organize the sequence of events that need to take place in order to start and build a successful business from A to Z. And I use the example of a construction company, but as you read it, I try to make it in a fun way. You will understand all of the different aspects that can improve your probabilities of succeeding in the business world. I do think that, although it sounds very specific, I think that anybody who enjoys the business world would like the book. I've written one about real estate, which sooner or later we all find ourselves, whether we are tenants renting space or buying a home or owning a business that requires to rent space or buy warehousing storage space, or sooner or later we want to get more involved in real estate. It's something that most of us sooner or later want to get into. So I wrote the second book by the name of Dirt Rich, which is giving value to the commodity of land as the main ingredient of everything that occurs in the industry of real estate. And investing, developing, speculating in real estate, that's what the second book is about. But yeah, they're in Amazon or on my website, joseberlanga.com. And this has been a very interesting process that I've enjoyed thoroughly. The process of reinventing ourselves and continuing to find things that are intriguing and fun for us. This is something that I'm working on right now, which is moving on to a new phase of my life of not just working on things that are difficult, that are stressful, but to actually start working on some things that I enjoy. And I found writing very relaxing in some way.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Congratulations. Congratulations on writing not one book yet, two. And I know you have a few more ideas in the pipeline.
Brief.
And so definitely reach out. I'll put all that information in the show notes so that people have your website and the names of the books. Jose, that's awesome. When I think at this stage in your entrepreneurial journey, what I'm hearing is you're really in a space where you want to leave an impact and a legacy and take everything and have other people have the ability to learn from you and learn from your experience and be of service to others. And I think it's such a beautiful time when you can get into that space of your journey with entrepreneurship where it becomes greater than just ourselves and our immediate surroundings. And so just congrats on that. And I think that's really cool.
Thank you so much. That is so true. And I really appreciate you bringing it up because my journey has been one of hard work and dedication and adversity that has not been easy. And I want to help other people understand that if they want to succeed, it's going to take a lot of work and it's okay. Don't feel alone. Don't think that your journey has been more difficult. I think that all of us struggle getting somewhere in life, and we tend to think that our experience is worse than others. And no, I think it's for most of us. In
Yeah.
most examples, I want to communicate the fact that it's not meant to be easy and it's okay. Don't feel alone when there are days when you just want to walk away from everything. And like you said, throw the towel and have enough and walk away from your potential. Just know that it's meant to be this way for most of us. So I want to try to start helping others to just realize it and eventually embrace it.
Yeah. No, I love it. Okay. Hey, I'm enjoying everything you're sharing. And I just have three last questions, just quick answers. First question, I know these are, how do I answer that quickly yet? Number one, what would you say would be your idea of success today?
It may sound like a cliche, but it's very true. When you own your time, when you eventually can wake up and choose what you're going to spend your day doing. Wow, that is a very successful story. When you
Uh,
can, when you wake up not forced to do something that you don't want to do, and just be able to say, "Hey, I'm going to do this and that," and own your time. It, perhaps the number one commodity, as they say, it's time. It's not
yeah.
money. Health and time. When you have those two, and obviously enjoy your health because we think that we have many problems in life until your health starts suffering. That's when you realize that all the other problems are meaningless. Take care of yourself and figure out how to own your time because ultimately that's really what you have
Yeah.
in this journey.
Agree. That is a success story. Okay. What would you say would be three tips or guidance that you would give someone to unleash their inner greatness?
Number one tool to unleash your inner greatness is to invest a little time digging. We rarely sit down to really evaluate ourselves in trying to get to know ourselves. In today's world of hecticness, of social media, of responsibilities, we don't sit around to really evaluate our own talent. Who am I? What do I like? What am I good at? How can I bring value to society, to the world, to my family, and to myself? Ask yourself critical questions about yourself and about how you can become happier and provide a service to your community.
Hmm. Oh my gosh. Brilliant answer. Brilliant. Okay. I love that. I have one more question. What would be a call to action you would give the listeners? So when they hop off this episode, something that they could go and apply or implement into their life this week as an entrepreneur?
Don't waste time on random things that will not provide something back to you. It is very easy to waste a few minutes here, a few minutes there, and they pile up. And all of those minutes that you can put together and read, learn, understand something, learn a language, learn a skill, start a business. It's amazing. We overestimate what we can achieve in the short term, but underestimate what we can achieve by utilizing all these hours that we waste doing nothing. If you accumulate them, I attribute whatever success I've achieved in my life is that I don't waste too much time on anything. Since I was very young, I would see, even when I was at school, I would see my friends going and taking a nap, hanging out at the coffee shop, just talking, having fun, relaxing, wasting valuable hours. Don't waste a single hour doing something that is not productive, because those hours pile up into a lot of great things that you could be doing with your life.
I love that message to end on, because it's true, right? The compound effect. And what if you use those hours for life-changing, soul-fulfilling activities? And so, great message. Jose, thank you for being here today and just talking about yourself and your business and just the experience that you've accumulated. And just, it's really a blessing to speak to somebody of your stature of success and just what you've overcome. There's so much we didn't even get into about your story, but that might be for another day and another podcast. And I just wish you all the best and continued success, and look forward to reading your book. And just thank you so much for your time today and being here.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Have an awesome day, Jose. Thank you. I just want to thank Jose for being a guest on my podcast today. And I really like his message, even though it is a bit of a tough message around entrepreneurship, and not at all in any way to deter anyone from their business ideas and their business growth and strategies that you're implementing, or the desire to be an entrepreneur. Yet I like his message about the reality of entrepreneurship, that yes, there is this mystical, magical idea of the lifestyle of an entrepreneur, and it is real, and it can become your reality, and it is becoming mine. Yet the truth is, it does take a certain level of discipline and sacrifice and grit and mindset, and this willingness to put yourself out there and take risks and fail forward and fail and learn the lessons the hard way, and a lot of times have some strategic imbalance in your life and in your business. And I'm at a stage in my level of entrepreneurship where I'm really learning how to work less and make more money and have my health and relationships be a priority. Yet I paid my dues. This is my 15th or 16th year as an entrepreneur. And so if you're just getting started, there is, I believe, this entry level fee to pay or price to pay where you have to be willing to put your head down and do the work. And I just like his message. It's just like real talk, right? And just enjoyed having him on. He clearly has paid his dues as an entrepreneur and a businessman, and he knows what he's talking about. And we didn't even get to some of his story of how he grew up in his childhood and the tragedies he went through. He has a very inspiring story, so I encourage you to check him out and learn more about him. And if you're here and you're an entrepreneur, you got this, you can do it. And just thanks so much for being here, and thanks so much for listening. With love, greatness, and success, it's your host, Kelly Beveridge.